Released on August 29th, 2023, Prison City is a late NES-styled platformer created by Programancer and published by Retroware. The game takes inspiration from NES games like Power Blade, Shatterhand, and Mega Man, while also taking cues from 80s and 90s action films like Terminator 2, RoboCop, and Johnny Mnemonic. I was actually sent this game a while ago, so that's kinda my bad, but I'm getting to it, so that's what matters, right? By the year of 1994, the city of Detroit was abandoned, and as a result of the Detroit Penal Project of 1995, walls were built around the city, effectively turning Detroit into a super prison, as the most dangerous criminals were sent there to serve their life sentences, making Detroit the last place on Earth you'd want to go. However, in 1997, techno-terrorists snuck into the city, weaponizing and rallying the various criminals to their causes. Hired by the chief of the DCP, working as a free agent, Hal Bruiser is tasked with infiltrating Detroit and taking out the 8 wardens, who have each taken refuge in an area of the city. After sneaking into the city, Hal makes his way throughout Detroit, seeking out his contacts in any given area, as all of them have managed to snag the warden's keycard, which he needs to confront the wardens. These conversations, while brief, gives us just a bit of insight on Hal's character and the contact he's talking to. For example, Hal usually thanks his contacts for giving him the warden's keycard, but with Zag, the contact for the power plant, not only does Hal not thank him for the keycard like he usually does with his contacts, but the entire conversation seems strained, likely due to some sort of shared history. While that's the basis for Prison City's story, I'm about to go further into the plot, so take this as your warning. If you want to skip to the gameplay synopsis, just skip to this time. After defeating all of the 8 wardens, before Hal can meet up with the chief of the DCP, he's contacted by a third party, who tells Hal not only to not meet up with the chief, but also to meet them outside of the DCP headquarters. Upon reaching the Spirit of Detroit, and after Hal confirms that he's not with the chief, but just a free agent, he's handed a data disk on the chief. 2 of his previous contacts, Donna and Dolphin, explain that the chief is actually the one who created the wardens, but couldn't control them anymore. However, thanks to the power vacuum Hal unwittingly created by taking out each of the wardens, the chief was able to capitalize on this, revitalizing his numbers and getting ready to expand Prison City. Hal also learns that the DCP headquarters is being used to make weapons and mutants, and with all of that in mind, Hal sets out to the DCP headquarters, fighting his way through before successfully breaking in. Once inside, Hal navigates and fights his way throughout the entire building, placing C4 all over the premises. After rigging the entire building with explosives, Hal confronts the chief, who states he's doing all of this to establish order, going so far to say that freedom is a disease and that he's the cure, justifying his stance by stating that freedom leads to crime. And with the wardens gone, he now believes that nothing can stand in his way, including Hal. However, even with all of his equipment, the chief is unable to back up his words. And due to that fact, the chief willingly injects himself with a green substance, mutating his body beyond recognition, all in hopes in gaining the upper hand. Yet despite the newfound strength and power given to Chief Payne by his newly mutated body, he still comes up short against Hal, lying in exhaustion after his defeat both due to the battle and the likely toll the mutation took on his body, just as the C4s begin to activate. With the DCP headquarters going up in flames, Hal wastes no time making his way out of the building, just barely escaping the chaos he caused. Once outside, Hal is once again faced with the Spirit of Detroit, which not only turns to face him, but reveals the chief inside. Payne, who likely used his teleporter to escape, is bitter about Hal's utter destruction of his plans, and with his body left broken from their earlier confrontation, and his plans up in flames, his desire for retribution burns much brighter than the surrounding fire, as he mans the Spirit of Detroit wanting to take Hal with him. The weaponized statue proved much more of a challenge than Payne ever did, thanks to its manpower and Chief's manipulation of the surrounding area, and continuously tries to stall Hal out so it can release a devastating attack he has no chance of defending against. Yet despite everything, Hal doesn't let up in the slightest, eventually knocking the statue's head off, ending Chief Payne's reign of terror. After one last look of the surrounding chaos, Hal finally gets on his motorcycle and drives down the streets of Detroit. While the plot of Prison City is simple and maybe even a bit cliche at points, considering that it's meant to mirror the plot of many early action movies, I actually think it works to the game's benefit. The most obvious example being that the DCP is inspired by RoboCop's OCP, or even Dolphin's entire design. From a gameplay front, Prison City, while simplistic, feels very rewarding and satisfying to play through when you master its mechanics. Hal has all the essentials that a platforming protagonist need, being able to move from left and right, and jumping. And alongside his ability to grab onto ledges, fences, and railings, he also has a slide that gives him a quick burst of speed, allowing him to slide under enemies and their attacks, or tight spaces. A more advanced technique of Hal's is his ability to slide off platforms and then jump while airborne. Not only does this trick make difficult jumps a lot easier, but even allows him to make some jumps that otherwise would be completely impossible, making entirely new shortcuts. While it isn't necessary to beat the game at all, it is a fun trick that adds a bit more depth to the game. One part of the game I didn't expect to have so much depth is Hal's main form of attack, his chakrams. They have pretty decent range, and come back to you like boomerangs. While you can throw a couple of them at once, spamming the attack button too much actually lowers their damage, indicated by the weapon meter. Due to that fact, the best means of attack is actually to find a balance between firing them quickly while not depleting your entire meter. Hal's chakrams can be thrown in 8 directions, and while you can hold down the direction you want to angle it in, you can actually hold down the shoulder buttons to angle it up or down, meaning that you can be in any position and still angle your shots however you want. Further adding to their functionality, if you hold down the attack button after throwing some out, they'll stay suspended in the air, allowing you to move them around freely in a circle or even back and forth. With this in mind, you can strategically place Hal in a position to deal with potential threats before they pose any real danger. With everything I just mentioned, coupled with the fact that it can also grab items, make Hal's chakrams a fun and versatile means of attack. Mastering Hal's offense is crucial to navigating Prison City's stages. While the game takes its progression structure from Mega Man, allowing you to go to whatever stage you want to, unlike many of the Blue Bomber stages, where you just have to reach the boss at the end of the stage, you first have to find the contact in a level, who will give you the Warden's key card, which gives you access to the boss room. Most of the time, there isn't any one way to get to a contact, as usually there's an alternate pathway for you to take. While both stage difficulty and length change on a level by level basis, the game is actually pretty well rounded difficulty wise. The only real exception to that being the power plant, which is definitely the most difficult stage in the game, and the rooftops, which is on the exact opposite end of difficulty. All of these levels are actually pretty big, and vary in challenge and aesthetic. For example, the football field has a large focus on its enemies, most of whom are not only sports themed, but positioned in such a way that you have to deal with their attacks, while the previously mentioned power plant is designed to test your reflexes under pressure, and the highway starts and ends with a motorcycle segment. The game never strays far from the usual gameplay, only adding new elements and challenges unique to the stages. There's also a few items to help make the stages easier and encourage the player to explore them fully, the most straightforward of the bunch being hot dogs, which restore Hal's HP, and grenades, which do a lot of damage, one-shotting every enemy and doing substantial harm to bosses. Then there's the shield power-up, which temporarily makes Hal completely invulnerable and even damages enemies and objects close to him repeatedly. All 3 of these items can be found in boxes or dropped by enemies, even the shield if you're lucky enough. Hidden within the 8 stages are either health upgrades, which of course boost Hal's max HP, and chakram upgrades, increasing the weapon meter and giving you more leeway to attack faster. While that should be enough motivation on its own to explore the stages, the real chakram upgrades are the power chakrams. Every stage in the game has at least 3 power chakrams inside of it, whether hidden in a box or another object depending on that stage. Once you gather all 3, Hal becomes nearly unstoppable. His chakrams easily triple in size, get an absurd damage increase, and even goes through walls with no struggle now. He even gains the ability to straight up destroy certain hazards he couldn't. However, how long this power trip lasts is completely dependent on the player. Anytime Hal gets hit, other than bottomless pits, thank God, and is in his powered up state, he loses one of the power chakrams. If he gets hit 3 times and loses all 3 of them, he goes back to normal, which genuinely feels terrible, I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. You also lose any power chakrams on you if you die, regardless if you're powered up or not. The power chakrams actually transfer over from stage to stage, so it's actually possible to start any level with all 3, or at the very least get a head start by starting with 1 or 2 of them. The power chakrams add a very nice risk and reward system to the gameplay. While it's completely possible to beat any stage, or even the entire game for that matter without them, you're given ample reason to search them out, and you're bound to run into at least a few of them while playing the game normally. The bosses are a very interesting part of the game for a few reasons. For the most part, all of them are pretty simple, following an easily identifiable pattern, but don't mistake that simplicity for a lack of difficulty. For example, for what's really just a really intense Pong match, Coolant Drive actually killed me multiple times. I promise you, one moment you're absolutely destroying this boss and another it's destroying you. However, some bosses really are as easy as they are simple, like Dock Diver, and then when you add in the power chakrams, they only get easier. Fury Roads, for example, is a complete non-issue with the power chakrams, not even getting to do any other attacks if you don't allow them to. Even then, there are some fights that even the power chakrams don't guarantee success against, like the Jumbotron or the Hellevator. Most of the fights are pretty fun, and none of them have that cheapness of the NES games that inspired them. Once you beat the game, you actually unlock a few things. First, there's Warden Rush, which is basically just a boss rush with breaks in between every 3 boss fights. Kinda like a Kirby Games arena. Then, the main thing I wanted to talk about is Bomber Mode. Bomber Mode is like a second playthrough, but instead of just finding a contact of an area and then going to the Warden's room, you now have to place bombs all over the stage before you can fight the Warden. And it's not like these are the exact same stages either. While the level layout has stayed the same, they've moved around obstacles and objects, added more difficult enemies, and in some areas, completely changed the level design, making for a whole new experience. There's also no upgrades, meaning the only enhancements Hal has access to is the power-ups and the super chakrams, which makes Bomber Mode a lot more challenging than the main campaign. The game even points out that it's made for super players. Bomber Mode also gives us some more background on the bosses, like for example, Mistress Josira was a petty thief and had a knack for tending to plants, before being experimented on by another boss in the game, and given the ability to control plants, or Coolant Drive, who's actually the brain of a person who's obsessed with getting a new high score, who keeps itself from overheating by creating an artificial polar vortex. Overall, I think Bomber Mode is a pretty cool addition, as it makes you explore the stages fully, and provide more of a challenge than the base game. If you like retro platformers with modern design philosophy, or possibly an action movie fan, I can't recommend Prison City enough. I've already done a few playthroughs of the game, and I've enjoyed my time with it immensely. I am very sorry to both the developers and the publisher that it took me this long to make a video on it. And if you're watching this video and you ever thought about giving me a game to cover, please don't let this deter you. Alright, well, that was really all I had to say. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace. Power any way that they can, but the Chiefs got a plan. It's just one man. Hal Bruiser, best of the best. A bad mamma jamma who can fix this mess. Trains spit toxic clouds in the night, but Hal is